Right trusty and well-beloved, we greet you well. That's one way people in Middle Ages England would say hello. And no, I don't remember that personally. Hi, I'm Gregory Broder. I'm the current chair of the Shiawassee County Commission. Today, I would like to give you a short verbal snapshot of the financial situation in our county. I would also like to share some of the progress we've made in recent years and some of the challenges that still lie ahead. As you are probably aware, Shiawassee County is not on solid financial footing. We have about a $20 million general fund budget and, unfortunately, about $50 million in debt. This debt is mostly due to our retirement obligations and has taken us many, many years to accumulate. The county's retirement obligations of approximately $150 million were underfunded by about $40 million until recently. To improve our county's long-term financial outlook, we recently took advantage of low interest rates, fortunately before the interest rates went up, by bonding the bulk of that deficit at the lower rate. Please understand that though we made the debt manageable by bonding it, our retirement fund is not just kept in a safe over in the treasurer's office. Our $150 million is invested because we need a return on that money and a growth of that fund in order to meet our future obligations. I say this because a market downturn will balloon our debt even further. Now, in addition to what we all know is an expected downturn in our economy in the next couple of years, as you know, inflation is returning in force, driving our costs up and putting strong upward pressure on wages. Shiawassee County already loses employees to neighboring counties that can pay, to be honest, more than we can. So that puts us at a competitive disadvantage as far as keeping people. We're taking steps we can to improve that, but it is a difficult process. If indeed our county's finances hit the fan, so to speak, our options are limited. Our county employees currently number around 240 people, but this is down by about a third from what it was 12 to 14 years ago. There are very few places left to cut without reducing services, and most of those services are mandated by law. County clerk, register of deeds, the courts, public defender's office, 911, all of those are mandated services. There are optional services, but believe me, the optional services are not some that people would like to see us make cuts. So it will be a challenge in the coming years, but I think we're in a fairly good place to handle that. I know all this sounds depressing, and indeed it does keep me up some nights, but there's also good news I'd like to share. Myself and the rest of the board are determined to not let our county degrade into a receivership. Let me tell you about some of the excellent changes that have been made in recent years to improve our financial outlook and the livability of our county as well. To prevent the county's retirement obligations from going further into the red, burdening the taxpayers more, we have closed the pension option for new hires. This assures that the bleeding stops. We still have our previous debt for our current employees, but we're no longer taking on any new debt and any new obligation. Instead, a 401k type of plan is offered for those new hires and, of course, is funded immediately. This will leave no lingering obligations for future generations. It's kind of like the old saying, if you find yourself digging a hole, stop digging. We've stopped digging. We still have to fill the hole we dug, but at least we've stopped digging. I think that's a very good thing. Also in recent years, piece of very good news, we have restructured how we deliver healthcare to our employees. Using a bit of creativity and competitive services, we've managed to cut costs, believe it or not, by almost $1 million a year with no reduction in employee health benefits. I'm very proud of that. We received over $12 million in ARPA funds. If you recall, ARPA funds was part of the $1.3 trillion that the federal government, Washington, sent to states and localities and individuals and so on. Now, they didn't have the money either, but, well, the federal government doesn't have to follow the same rules we at the local level do. Anyway, the bulk of these funds were used for revenue replacement and infrastructure projects. Using ARPA allowed us to do revenue replacement and not reduce our fund balance, which is kind of our savings account, which still sits at about $3 million. $3 million that we can use in the coming years if there's difficulty to close budget gaps. Please understand that the COVID years were hard on the county, as they were on everyone else. But what happened during COVID is our revenues shrunk significantly as various fees for things people were no longer doing, court fees and expenses were no longer coming in. So we were able to use the ARPA funds to make up, to replace that revenue. And it was very helpful and I think wisely used. Another use for our ARPA funds is that our beautiful historic courthouse is again in need of a major renovation. The last renovation to our courthouse was done in 1989 to 1990. If you've never been to the courthouse, I hope when the work is done, you'll all come to the open house and see it. It's a fabulous structure that is worth savings. We have set aside about half of our ARPA money, about $6.5 million, to make sure that this historic building will not deteriorate and will be fully functional for another 40 years. This is a valuable asset to our community, and we were pretty much faced with three choices. We renovate it at a cost of $6.5 million, as I said. We tear it down and build a new facility, which would be nowhere as near as attractive for 3 times as much, maybe $20 million. Or we could just ignore the problem and let our next generation in 15 or 20 years tear the building down because it wouldn't be able to save. I think that we made a good choice, and I hope you think so too. A few years ago, our county also signed on to a class action lawsuit against the manufacturers of opioids, the pharmaceutical companies. As you know, opioids have been a scourge in our community, have cost us a lot of money in law enforcement and addiction. I'm pleased to say that lawsuit was successful, and our portion of that lawsuit over the years is going to equal about $2 million. In fact, just recently, just the other day, I was informed that our first check for $450,000 has come in for that lawsuit. That is a very helpful amount and will be used to mitigate some of the damage that the opioid crisis has caused in our community. Another use of our ARPA funds, in conjunction with our veterans organization and the funds that they have, is we are rehabbing a wing of the Griffin home. It's a former nursing home that is owned by the county now. If you are familiar with the drain office on State Road, it's across the parking lot. Anyway, we are rehabilitating this structure, a wing of this structure, to create a new veterans center with many more rooms, and will allow them to better serve our veterans, expand our services. We will have, I think, the finest veterans center in this part of the state, if not a larger area. Currently, our veterans are on the upper floor of our administration building, the Surbeck building, in a wholly inadequate space that does not even serve their current needs, let alone allow them to expand the services for veterans. So again, I'm very pleased with the progress we have there. And when we are finished and we have a grand opening, I hope you'll come visit and see what a fine facility that is. Another bright spot I'm proud of is in the last year, we have formed the Shiawassee County Land Bank. We're also reinstituting the county's Brownfield Authority. These two entities working together will be essential in the development needs of our county. In fact, the state land bank is transferring to our local land bank a number of properties, and we're already in serious talk with developers for new housing in the county. You all know that we need more housing in Shiawassee County, and we definitely need residential development and commercial development in order to increase our tax base to pay off the debt that I talked about earlier. This is a wonderful step and will be very useful in allowing us to work with those two entities and developers to get the development that we need. Additionally, because we have a local land bank, we were recently able to take advantage of a $200,000 state grant for blight elimination. There were a number of good projects suggested, and the Shiawassee County Land Bank settled on two very good projects. One of those is in Duran, the old Simplicity factory, if you're familiar with it, tearing down that building. That building has been an eyesore and a hazard in that community for years. It's the biggest abandoned industrial facility in the county. Getting rid of it will greatly benefit the area. Another project is in the village of Lennon. Village of Lennon has a significant blight problem in its downtown area. An old hardware, I believe it was, and a grocery store. There are 3 buildings, effectively, that are closed. One of them recently burned. They're dangerous, they're uninhabitable, they're an eyesore. And with the land bank's money passing through from the state, we chose that. It will be a big benefit to the community of Lennon. And I'm very pleased we can help out there. There's also very good news just in recent days. While I can't say it's 100% certain yet, it looks like the state is going to give our local land bank yet another $500,000 to do more of these blight projects. And we will be looking throughout the county, looking for applications to use this very well. Blight is a cancer on small communities and large, and to remove blight is a benefit to everyone around. If we had not instituted a local land bank in the last year, those funds would not be available to us. So I'm very pleased that we did that. I'm looking forward to having the Brownfield reestablished, because those two organizations will work hand in hand for development for our county. Now, I know I'm going to miss a number of things, very good things that are going on in the community, but there's a few that come to mind. First of all, our county treasurer, Julie Sorensen, is going above and beyond the call of duty, as well as demonstrating a personal heart of gold in instituting several programs and efforts aimed at helping people who are in danger of losing their properties to tax foreclosure. There is help out there, and if you need help, please call her office, and they will do everything they can to make sure that you don't lose your home. Another thing, anyone who's driven around the county has probably seen the road improvements in the last year or two, especially M21. If you travel east at all, we're thrilled with how wonderful that road is. There are a lot of other projects, and there are things in the works, so keep up the good work, Shiawassee County Road Commission. Our parks. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the beautiful parks in Shiawassee County. If you've been out to Chi-Town and seen the dam removal project, the planting of trees, other parks that have been improvements. The Parks Commission has put together a master plan that will help us to get more grants for our parks. We're moving forward. Our parks will get better and better and are definitely a shining spot in Shiawassee County and will be in the future. Let's see, another thing, as you probably know, our sheriff, Brian Begole, is now State Representative Begole, and we have been incredibly fortunate that the new appointed sheriff is Doug Chapman. Doug is not just a highly experienced law enforcement officer, but he, as in my personal experience, he is as decent and compassionate a human being as you'll find. So we all welcome Sheriff Chapman and hope he will serve our county for a long, long time. On a more technical note, I'd like to mention our budget and our audit processes. Compared to those processes in previous years, we have night and day. Last year, our county coordinator, Dr. Brian Boggs, our finance director, Tracy Bublitz, our finance chair at the time, Commissioner John Plowman, and myself attended most of the budget meetings with the various department heads. What was once a long and painful process was smooth, professional, and quick, a far cry from years earlier. I know that's kind of inside information, but it's hard for me to overemphasize how important it is to the efficient running of a county that the budget process is rational, professional, and smooth. We have absolutely achieved that. The audit process, we have to do yearly audits, they are required, is a similar story. It used to be almost a county emergency when budget time came up, or excuse me, audit time came up. And sometimes we'd have to hire outside help at great expense and so on, and the audit would be late. None of that is the case anymore. Today, our audits are smooth, on time, and result in very, very minor findings and very few. We can be proud of that, and we can know that that kind of time is not taken now, and we can move on to more important things. I know I've missed people. I know I've missed things that I should mention, and I'll probably get in trouble for it, but I guess that's part of being chair of the county commission. That's one of the things that happens. But I'd like to say Shiawassee County is a wonderful place to live and work and raise a family, and like myself, eventually retire. I and the rest of the county commission will continue our efforts to keep things in our county running smoothly and efficiently and make sure our future is a good one. Thank you for your time.